All right, well, it is 2 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started as people continue to join us. Hi, everybody. My name is Caroline. I'm with Boardable. If you've never heard of Boardable before, we are a central location for all things that your board needs to communicate, whether it's sharing documents, assigning tasks, making minutes, agendas for your meetings, everything you need to operate. You can try out in a free trial at boardable.com. I'll put that in the chat here in a second. But I also, real quickly, before we get started, want to thank Bonfire for sponsoring our 3rd annual board engagement survey. And if you'd like to take a minute after the webinar to fill this out, we would greatly appreciate it. You'll get some great free downloads for your time and a chance to win one of 2 iPads. So with that, I am so excited to introduce Reagan and David from Bonfire, and they're going to talk to us today about simple peer-to-peer fundraising ideas you can use in 2021. We all need more of those, don't we? All right, guys, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
You can never have enough simple peer-to-peer fundraising ideas, I always say, Caroline.
I always say that too. Weird.
That is weird. Thought it was just me. Well, thank you so much for having us, to you personally and to Boardable for hosting. Much appreciated. We're psyched to be here. And this has been a big year, obviously, for peer-to-peer fundraising as a whole. We've seen trends develop on our platform in particular, and there should be probably one other word added to this title screen: simple and fun peer-to-peer fundraising ideas you can use in 2021, because at the end of the day, that's what all of these solutions, my colleague Reagan and I are going to be talking to you guys about, and how you can really leverage those in a digital space. With the onset of COVID, we know how important that is. But a little bit about us before we dive in. I'm the director of sales at Bonfire. And basically, that just means I get to take the credit for all the work that people like Reagan do. So, Reagan, tell them a little bit about yourself and how you're really driving this ship.
Hey guys, my name is Reagan. Super excited to be here today. I am the peer-to-peer fundraising specialist here at Bonfire, which basically just means I work with awesome organizations like yourself and work with them and their supporters to launch amazing apparel fundraising campaigns on their behalf so we can raise some awesome money. But yeah, that's what I do. Thanks for having me.
A little bit about Bonfire. There's a lot of words on that slide, and it really just says in a nutshell that we make fundraising with t-shirts really simple and easy. A lot of you maybe in the chat have had the experience where you've tried to fundraise with apparel before, and it sounds nice in theory until you have to fork over the cash to buy that box of shirts, schlep them out yourself to all your supporters, package them up, all that stuff. We handle it all in a really risk-free way, all the logistics, and then providing tips and tricks along the way to help promote your campaign and empower your supporters to have the most successful apparel fundraising experience possible. We've been fortunate enough to work with nonprofits and causes ranging from the Women's March on Washington, the American Eagle Foundation, Jane Goodall Institute, to small animal rescues with 1 or 2 people at the helm. So anybody, big or small, can use our platform. It's not the size that matters, but it's how you use your audience. And that's something that we really believe here at Bonfire.
Awesome. So I want to give you guys kind of an overview of what we're going to chat about today. I'm going to handle what is peer-to-peer fundraising. Hopefully some of you have heard this term before, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what it is, some benefits of peer-to-peer fundraising, the 7 steps to setting up a peer-to-peer fundraiser, and some best practices. David, what are you going to talk about?
And then I'm going to get into the details a little bit with some specific examples around 3 of the ones that, not just on Bonfire, but across the entire peer-to-peer fundraising spectrum, 3 specific examples that really work well. These include time-based campaigns, recurring ones, and ones centered around some very particular giving days throughout the year.
Awesome. Well, we want to start things out with a question for you guys. Please utilize the chat. We would love to hear, have you ever held a walkathon or another team-based event? A yes or no, maybe an example of what kind of event that was. We'd love to hear it. Please tell us.
That's right. Blow up that chat. We didn't bring those virtual bagels for nothing.
I will say the audience is on a 7-second delay from us, so I don't know why, in case you start cussing or something, but it might take them a moment to get their answers in there.
All right. Well, we got our first answers coming through here.
So first time, yeah.
A lot of those. Yes, from Jermaine, give big event. Volunteered some Alzheimer's walks, virtual run event. Love that. Walkathons.
Love it. Well, it sounds like we've got a lot of quite a big mixed bag here of people who have participated or held one themselves, and those who are still pretty new to the peer-to-peer fundraising world. So that's awesome news for us. Somebody's used Bonfire before, Christina. That is awesome. Well, we're super excited to tell you guys a little bit more about how peer-to-peer fundraising works and talk about some examples of how you can get involved. So thanks so much for sharing. Virtual Step-a-thon. That's something I can get into. David, let's talk about that after this. Awesome. Let me see. I'm controlling my own slides here. Sweet. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into what is peer-to-peer fundraising. So, I like to think of peer-to-peer fundraising kind of like a tree. So the way you can think about this is the organization as the trunk, your supporters and your community members as the branches, and then their networks, their friends and family, et cetera, as the leaves. So fundraising can flourish so much more when we, mobilize our supporters to help to fundraise on our behalf. Otherwise all we have is a stump. So that's kind of a visual explanation of peer-to-peer fundraising. But maybe you're thinking, Reagan, I don't get the trees analogies. They're not for me. Well, let's check out a more formal definition of peer-to-peer fundraising. So peer-to-peer fundraising is a social fundraising strategy that gives individuals the ability to raise money on behalf of a nonprofit organization. Those funds that individuals raise go directly towards the nonprofit organization. So your community can engage in peer-to-peer fundraising by creating an online fundraising page, setting a goal for how much they want to raise, and then leveraging those existing social networks and relationships to ask for donations and help them to complete that fundraising campaign.
Reagan, I know you like to think of yourself as a micro-influencer, and this is kind of what you're talking about, right? Everybody can be their own influencer in these instances.
That's right, David. And, right now we do have so much influence, while we are at home and we are connecting with friends and family on the internet. That is an amazing time to utilize resources like this for peer-to-peer fundraising. So yes, I'm a local influencer. Follow me on the Instagram. I'll drop my handles, but want to give you guys a little bit more context. So traditionally nonprofits solicit donations from donors, asking them to donate directly to the organization. Crowdfunding campaigns are similar. However, the money that's raised within crowdfunding campaigns often goes towards, a personal cause or a business startup or a specific project or program. Finally, peer-to-peer fundraising, which you can see over here on our screen, is categorized when nonprofits directly ask supporters to start fundraisers on their behalf. So let's talk about some of those benefits of peer-to-peer fundraising. Awesome. So as the peer-to-peer fundraiser, I could talk your ear off about the benefits of peer-to-peer fundraising, but I've narrowed it down to just 3 today. So first, I want to talk about strengthening relationships. So by empowering your donors with the ability to create their own fundraising campaigns and pages with their own story about why your cause is so important to them, you really give them the opportunity to feel personally connected to your nonprofit and to your mission. Through this, your relationships with your donors will be closer than ever. Wanted to highlight a couple of stats that really show the value in leveraging your donors' networks. So 39% of Americans say that they've donated to a charity based on a request from a friend or a family. It's a pretty significant number. And 47% of peer-to-peer donors are first-time donors to an organization. That's a whole new network for you guys. So next, I want to go into organically raising money and awareness. So the individuals who create fundraising pages on your behalf do so because they care about what you're doing and what you guys are doing within your organization. This type of personal investment within your cause makes it so much easier and much more natural for folks to be able to share their fundraiser with their friends and family. $568 is the average amount that individuals raise within a peer-to-peer fundraiser. That's a ton of money that can do a ton of real things. I don't have to tell you guys that. Multiply that by everybody within your community. That's a lot of money. So last, I want to talk about saving your organization time and money. So because peer-to-peer fundraising, really 14% of peer-to-peer fundraisers become fundraisers again for the same organization. So let's talk about the 7 steps of a peer-to-peer fundraiser. I know that seems like a lot, but we're going to condense it down. It's really not too much, but want to walk you guys through each step there. So first is determining what type of peer-to-peer campaign you want to run and establishing a goal for how much money you want to raise. So when starting out, it's great to take a few minutes to write, 1 to 2 sentences describing your vision for peer-to-peer fundraising, how your supporters can get directly involved with this kind of peer-to-peer fundraiser, and how you hope this new method will fit into your existing fundraising efforts. Next is to choose a platform that fits your needs. Definitely David's going to talk about a couple in just a minute here, but talk about, what kind of platform is going to fit your needs best so that you can reach that goal. Third is to recruit your supporters. So, letting folks know that this is an option. So, setting up that campaign page and asking if folks would be interested in participating in a peer-to-peer initiative. You guys can send an email out via your donor lists. Include a link on how to get involved on your website, or create a post on social media about this peer-to-peer fundraiser that is happening. Fourth is that donors will be creating their fundraising pages on behalf of your nonprofit. This is where the fun starts. This is where the money start coming in for your mission. Donors solicit donations from their friends and family members and get the word out about their campaign by sharing on social media. The last step is to track progress. Your nonprofit can track the overall progress of your campaign and provide donors with continued support and resources to help promote their fundraisers. Awesome. So definitely want to touch on some best practices. So first up is specifying a fundraising coach within your organization. So having that person within your organization who is available to answer questions, provide encouragement to those that are participating in that initiative, somebody who can be, the go-to, the champion of this peer-to-peer initiative. Next is to tell your organization's story and make sure that people have the resources that they need to be successful during this peer-to-peer fundraising campaign. So providing them with things like your mission statement, brand guidelines and logos, candid photos that they can use, to put on their fundraising pages, links to your social media profiles, and social media templates and email templates. Those can be super, super helpful and make it really easy for people to share out messages about this, event that they're participating in. So providing those can definitely be huge. Next is identifying key donors, because so much of your success relies on your donors to start their own fundraisers and then reaching out to their networks. It's crucial that your campaign starts off on the right foot. So to help ensure this, identifying some key donors right off the bat, the ones, those people that are super passionate about your cause, have an emotional tie to your mission, reach out to them and have them help things get started. Lastly, we don't want to forget to thank our donors. Acknowledge the hard work and effort that your donors are doing for your organization. An easy way is to thank everybody on a social media post, like through Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. But we really encourage you guys to go beyond just a simple social post and consider personally reaching out to donors who have launched a campaign on your behalf to thank them, especially those that have gone above and beyond. David, you still there?
I'm still here.
Awesome. I'm going to pass the mic over to David now. He's going to share a bit more with us about the types of peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns and ways that your organization can get involved. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, and before I dive in, I did see that Beth dropped a question in the chat. She asked, how do you motivate people to fundraise for you? What's in it for them? And I guess I want to answer that from two perspectives. One, the organization's perspective, motivating those team captains that Reagan just described, kind of those champions, those ones who are going to go above and beyond via some of these really specific types of peer-to-peer fundraising methods, like apparel fundraising, like live streaming, like organizing a virtual walkathon. But then I think what's really cool is that the motivation that they spark amongst their own little niche communities of friends and family, that kind of takes care of itself, because it's a phenomenon we've noticed on our platform that if you have a really emotionally driven cause at the heart of something, and for most people, when they're talking to their network of friends and family, that's definitely going to be the case. I'll get into a little bit more when I talk about the ACCO, the American Childhood Cancer Organization, but they had hundreds of individual peer-to-peer fundraisers, and that emotional pull took care of itself because they were talking to the people who naturally cared about supporting the cause the most. Whereas that never would have happened had the org just tried to fundraise on behalf of a generic cause. Instead, they leveraged peer-to-peer to tap more into an individual who has a connection with friends and family that, truly care about supporting someone in need. But before I get ahead of myself, that's coming up here shortly. So we'll dive into the types of P2P in just a second, but a quick prompting question. What kinds of fundraisers has COVID prompted you all to try? In addition to maybe some of those walkathons that you dropped in the chat earlier, are there any other ones kind of outside of the event space that you guys have drummed up since COVID hit, and have they been successful?
Oh, that's a great question. I know there's been a lot of pivoting this year. And yeah, that's a challenge when circumstances change suddenly. Let's see. Anybody have a COVID P2P example?
Ooh, online auctions, big ones. Ugly Heart fundraiser. I like that.
That's awesome.
Car wash. Peer-to-peer phone calls. Who know? Ooh, nice. Picking up the phones. An underused channel these days.
David loves that. Pick up the phone.
I do. Virtual Giving Tuesday event. Nice. We'll definitely touch on that. Bonfire. That's my girl, Christina.
And a virtual dance show. Love that.
Oh my goodness. Is that? I hope that was recorded. Cabarets, yoga, psychic events. Tell me more. Exercise classes. Dang, sent just letters to members of donors for emergency fund, raise 102 grand. Wow.
That's amazing.
Mad props. Dang, well, lots of great ideas for sure. And I'm happy to see that. I mean, there were some in there. It just goes to show you that would have never even crossed my mind. Ugly art fundraising, virtual dance-a-thons. I mean, people are getting creative out there, you folks in particular in the chat. And if we can provide some value with some additional ideas today, that's awesome, because I think it's just going to be more paramount heading into next year. You know, we've got a vaccine on the horizon, but I think the landscape has changed permanently to some extent. And the more tools you have in your tool belt for generating peer-to-peer fundraising events and excitement around those, I think the better nonprofits are going to be equipped to just handle an array of fundraising challenges headed into the future. So with that being said, we'll talk about the first one here, time-based. So this is kind of what our platform's bread and butter is, and that's really driving urgency around a campaign's placed within a specific time frame that's usually tied to a scheduled event. Some of the most common ones are those walkathons, golf outings, 5K, 10K events, bake sales, more of the traditional type of things that you might have engaged in when we could fundraise in a physical capacity out in the real world. But these days you have to focus on the digital space. Oh, getting a couple frozen messages in the chat here. Give it a second for folks to refresh. Oh, in the meantime, Deborah just got her 501c this week. Congratulations. But yeah, excited to give you some ideas. All right, we're going to power through. And Caroline, just let me know if you think we need to adjust the video settings.
Okay.
Okay, so t-shirt fundraising specifically. Again, to back it up to the top of the presentation, that's what Bonfire does. No boxes of shirts, though. Try to make it easy on you. And the kind of crux of our platform is anybody can come on, upload their own design, create a design using our custom tool for free. And then at the end of a campaign, we print and ship everything directly to your supporters. So you're never touching any of those boxes of shirts and shipping them and packaging them yourselves. And what's cool is that at the end of that campaign, how we keep it free for you guys is we'll generate a lump sum payment for the total amount raised during that, and you'll get a payout straight to your personal Bonfire account that includes any additional donations people drop in there. Rick's asking, I have a Bonfire, but I'm really bad at creating their campaigns. Is one-on-one help available? Great question, Rick. Absolutely. Your girl Reagan over here, our peer-to-peer fundraising specialist, would definitely be down. You can email her directly at reagan@bonfire.com. I think that go ahead and drop that email in the chat, yeah.
RAEGAN, correct? Yes. Okay.
That is correct, yes.
But in addition to one-on-one help you could receive from someone like Reagan here on staff or one of our customer success representatives, we also have a customized library of templates ready to go. So for those people who have something in mind but just need a little help getting it across the finish line but want to totally DIY it, they can use one of those templates to put it on our shirt design tool, and then add subtle elements that really, like your logo, maybe any other wording, using our text tool like that, kind of try to keep it as easy to use. We like to think as easy as possible in the t-shirt fundraising space. But on the peer-to-peer level specifically, we worked with a really cool organization during their Awareness Month. And again, this goes back to this time-based concept, the American Childhood Cancer Organization. They're the U.S.'s oldest and largest grassroots org dedicated to childhood cancer. And historically, before they started using Bonfire, they created a shirt every year that listed the name of every child that was currently in their network that had been impacted by cancer, whether they were still fighting the battle or had lost it. And while this was also usually a really good overall fundraiser for them, it didn't tap into those specific peer-to-peer networks, like I mentioned, where they were leveraging all the different people that were impacted in those specific families of friends. So they used Bonfire to essentially enable every one of those people who would have normally had their name lost in a big shirt design. We gave them the chance to create their own unique design that highlighted the name of that child fighting the battle. And then that shirt was then promoted out through those peer-to-peer networks to the friends and family. And you can see some of the stats here. Almost $70,000 raised across 873 unique sellers that created those peer-to-peer campaigns. And like Reagan talked about earlier with the network effect, this was the coolest thing. They were able to reach over 3,000 people that would have otherwise never heard about the American Childhood Cancer Organization had it not been for these peer-to-peer campaigns. I did see there's a question here. We don't have a lot of funds right now. How much is all this? On Bonfire, it's totally free. So, and all these solutions we're going to be talking about today, in fact, are totally free to use for the most part, aside from some platform fees that they take. But that's only after that the payout gets generated for you on the back end. So in addition to simple and fun, we know that 501c3s in particular need to be really conservative in terms of their capital these days. And that's why all the solutions we're going to be presenting to you today will help you take advantage of that without breaking the bank. All right, so keeping it moving, this is just kind of the end result, what their peer-to-peer page looks like that kind of aggregates all of the different data. And you can see a couple of the fundraising campaigns displayed here, but it's essentially a central point for that organization to point to and say, hey, this is how much we were able to raise through all of these peer-to-peer campaigns over time. And then you can post something like that on their website to say, if more people want to do this in the future, great. Come on. It's a really easy to use tool, and Bonfire is going to take care of helping you guys out from here on out. All right. So there's more than just time-based campaigns out there. There's recurring ones as well. And, just to paint a really transparent picture with you, with time-based ones, there is an element of promotion and like Reagan alluded to, getting it out there through those channels, like email marketing, posting on your social, your website, all that kind of thing that you have to do in order to get the word out. There's just no way around that. With recurring campaigns, you can be a little more hands-off. They go on indefinitely. You're not going to get the same amount of traction in a short amount of time that you will from a time-based one. But at the same time, it's a really just kind of low-lift way for any org to kind of establish an option for their peer-to-peer fundraisers and then let them do the work over time whenever inspiration strikes. And one really cool example of that everyone can use, because everyone's on the Insta these days. I say that's what the kids are calling it, right, Reagan? Insta?
Or is it the gram?
That's right. The gram. David, you might be behind on that term.
Shoot. All right. I got to brush up on my lingo apparently. But on the gram, they've made it really easy to create these story stickers. And if you're not familiar with stories, it's a new feature that basically Instagram ripped off from Snapchat a little while ago. But essentially, they're the disappearing posts within a 24-hour period. And Instagram now made that gave a charitable element to that by adding the ability for nonprofit users to add these donation stickers to the stories. And again, to answer a couple of those questions in the chat, there's no fee for using this feature, which is mighty cool. And all you have to do to set this up, and again, people will have access to this after the presentation. So you just go through Facebook, charitable giving tools, to that link there, connect your Gram account to your Facebook account, and then make sure your Instagram account is set to your business profile and you'll be off and running. One quick example, someone who's done this really well out there in the wild is the ASPCA. They actually make these templates available for folks on their website that they can come and download anytime. And then they're able to just take that and leverage the peer-to-peer networks of all their supporters across the world, quite frankly, who want to post these anytime. It's super low lift, right? Again, a little less hands-on than the time-based one, but can ultimately be something that just about anyone with an Instagram account can do, which is pretty cool. And then the final example I'm going to touch on is giving days. So these typically center around a 24-hour period where donors are pushed to raise as much money as they can. A lot of people dropped Giving Tuesday, virtual Giving Tuesday efforts in the chat that they experienced, and that's probably the most prominent example most people will be familiar with. I'm going to touch on one that you might not be as familiar with, but the gaming/live streaming space. And in case anybody's not up on that, I know I'm getting older by the day, but these live streamers, they're out there on platforms like Twitch, essentially just filming themselves playing video games. It could be anything from playing chess, baking. There's all kinds of live streaming similar to YouTube, but everything's done live. And there's a chat element to it, which is very, we'll touch on a little bit, much like this webinar here, where that's how they interact with their fans while they're filming live and ultimately can solicit donations from them in a very peer-to-peer style element. So big orgs like St. Jude, which has raised over $20 million through 20,000 plus streamers. It's hard to believe that there are even 20,000 people doing this, let alone 20,000 specifically who raise money for St. Jude. And then another example is the Children's Miracle Network, again, which raised over 14 million, just like St. Jude, but that was in the year of 2019 alone. And a lot of you folks are probably thinking, well, I'm not as big as St. Jude or the Children's Miracle Network. How can I leverage these live streamers out there on whatchamacallit platforms? Well, I'm here to tell you that even the small streamers, much like any other forms of peer-to-peer that we're talking about, do make a difference. And one really good example of that is this guy with the handle Epsilon Winter. He's a 23-year-old student who's affected by muscular dystrophy. And he chose, you can see these stats here, actually. He's got 8 average viewers on his profile and 67 post views total. So this by no means, I'm sure he does a great job, but this is not a large streaming channel. But all that to say is he set a goal of $350, exceeded it by over $150 to raise $528 total. And ultimately, there's tons of these out there on these platforms that have yet to be tapped into for any nonprofit. I think the biggest takeaway here for me was we were doing the research for this is, wow, I can't believe that there are so many folks in the streaming space. And I would imagine that most of you guys in the chat would find the same thing if you put that out to your peer-to-peer community to say, how many of you guys are on these platforms and how could we help you leverage them in a peer-to-peer capacity to give back to the organization? So this is even cooler for me to dive into than the big ones like St. Jude, who are using just the most popular streamers in the world. I think it speaks to the power of peer-to-peer on the small grassroots level and what folks like this young student can do for a cause that they really care about. And this is kind of what a page will look like when it's set up. This is the form Epsilon Winners charity stream here, just to give you a quick glance at the end result. And the two big platforms, again, driving you to these solutions that will ultimately, help you get the job done if you want to explore these further. Tiltify and Streamlabs. Tiltify will give you a bit more of a hands-on experience. They do charge a 5% platform fee, whereas Streamlabs, if you got someone in the 501c3 or your network who's a bit more savvy, it's probably the better option for you. It's not quite as hands-on from their customer support perspective, but they don't charge a platform fee. So if you got someone who knows their stuff in the streaming space, that's the option for you. All right. I know we ran through a couple of those pretty fast, but I wanted to make sure we left time for some questions. So there was one about the Instagram chat in particular. Maybe we can address that here later. But Reagan, give them a little recap.
Yeah, guys, thanks again for your time and for listening. Just to recap, we went over what peer-to-peer fundraising is, the most basic level as a tree, but then the formal definitions of what peer-to-peer fundraising is, some of the benefits, the 7 steps to starting a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign, and some best practices for you to keep in mind if you do decide to move forward and launch one of your own. David,
nice.
what do you talk about?
I think for me, that we dove into those specific examples, and again, we'd be happy to touch on those in the time we have left. More specific questions around time-based, recurring, and giving days. But ultimately, hopefully, we provided you guys with some actionable tips here to expand your peer-to-peer fundraising arsenal for 2021 and beyond. So with that being said, let's open it up if folks have any questions, and we can go back to the sums that I think Reagan and I missed as they were coming in a little fast there at one point, but feel free to repost if you'd like.
Yeah, I had a question for you all. When you were talking about providing all the collateral to help people be successful with this, the images, the Instagram frames, and all that kind of thing, what do you recommend? Like maybe just setting up a Dropbox drive that then you can share with everybody, that you put all those images, all that text in?
I think that's a really great idea. That's
Reagan,
something
you want to grab that one?
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea, something that we've done on our end before, and so having just a central place where folks can find all of those resources. So whether that is on like a how to get involved page and there's a link to, a Dropbox or something like that, I think is a great idea.
Yeah, and I know probably some people with small staffs are thinking like, oh, I don't have time to do all this. But like you said, if you can find one savvy person to just pull that part together for you, it could really make it an easy, small lift for even just like a 1 or 2 person staff.
For sure. And, I think the reality of it is that there's so many people out there, your communities and your support, beyond just the staff at your organization have a ton of amazing, gifts. So, there's a potential that some of those key donors and, your key people that I mentioned, reaching out to them and saying, hey, do you have any creative expertise, or, kind of what are your thoughts on if we're going to run a peer-to-peer campaign like this? Like, what's something that you would love to have so that we can make sure that that's available to other folks like you who want to start their own campaign?
Okay. I see a good question here from Jermaine about how would you integrate these with giving days? I'm not sure if they mean the peer-to-peer in general or t-shirts specifically, but maybe you could kind of talk about how people have used Bonfire with giving days.
Yeah, I can jump in first, and then Reagan, if you have anything else to add. With Bonfire specifically, we'll use Giving Tuesday as an example. A lot of the nonprofits that we work with on our platform will reserve that day to release, a quote unquote limited edition design to their supporter base that gets them really excited. And again, they know they only have that particular time frame around the giving day to get that piece of apparel. So a good example of that is the American Eagle Foundation that I mentioned at the top of this. They release a shirt every year around that time that updates their design, and it kind of creates a collection of limited edition designs that their supporters are really into. And they take a lot of pride in saying like, oh, I have the one from 2017. And continuing to, expand as they expand their network as time goes on, those campaigns just kind of compound on themselves. So I think that's one of the coolest ways just on the overall platform level. And then from a peer-to-peer perspective, I think that Reagan could probably speak to this a bit more, but we can help orgs set up these specific landing pages where folks are coming on, and then we're having representatives on our side work with them to create their own vision of a custom design, not just one that the org has kind of like pre-approved or stamped for them.
Yeah, it seems there's some confusion about that part in terms of how, what does the donor pay versus what does the nonprofit pay? And correct me if I'm wrong, but the nonprofit doesn't pay anything. They just set up the design and distribute the link for the products, correct?
That is correct. Yes, Bonfire is totally free. So we only print and ship what is purchased within a campaign. So that leaves no cost for you guys, no upfront investment in inventory. It's one of the benefits to working with me. We provide free design service, free counseling all the way through, coaching to make sure that you guys are successful. On the flip side, if you wanted to do a peer-to-peer campaign, and like David just kind of mentioned, basically sending out a note to your supporters and saying, hey, Bonfire is a great way to, help fundraise for this peer-to-peer initiative or event that we're doing, here's where to get started. So again, we have that custom landing page where folks can go to get started. It's totally free for them as well. They have access to free custom design work. We help to get everything set up for them. There is no cost to anybody to start a Bonfire campaign. Does that help a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So idea. And then Sanita asks, which I think this goes back to our find a creative volunteer in your network, but how do you create those marketing images like the ASPCA has? I think she was referring to the Instagram ones. Yeah, that's not really something we could explain in a webinar, I don't think.
Yeah, that's a little bit above probably our skill set right on this call, but ultimately, like Caroline said, that these webinar notes that we post, and that has that 3-step process for actually just creating that account where you have access to the raw materials for creating those marketing images. And then, Instagram is pretty user friendly. You can just use their kind of online portal to help you there. But yeah, like Caroline mentioned, you will have to use someone within your network, whether that's in the org or friends and family, to help pretty them up so that you can post them and make them available to your entire supporter base that they can use on their Instagram stories as well.
Well, this is fun. Christina posted her Bonfire campaign that they're doing right now so people can kind of see how it works from a donor perspective.
Oh, nice. Christina, this is an awesome design.
Oh, I love it. That's great.
And yeah, you nailed it. And I know Ken was asking a couple questions about, he just had a virtual walkathon. They had to get all the shirts printed and shipped. And do we do it all? That's right. And we also calculate the donor info and specific donor info. So yeah, using Christina's link here, at the end of this 13-day campaign that they have left, you can see the ticker for those who are clicking on it in the chat. Not only will we send her the lump sum payment for all the funds raised, but then she'll also have access to the donor info. As a 501c3, you're able to get all that. And then you can leverage that for those network effects in a peer-to-peer fundraising space, adding those to your marketing emails, sending them personalized thank yous, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I think just especially important to highlight, especially now with the uncertainty of what next year might look like for virtual walk, runs, events, stuff like that. We don't know that we're going to have a packet pickup or, be able to have everybody together. So a really great thing about Bonfire, like David mentioned, is everything is shipped directly to supporters. So if they're walking on their own, walk where you are, they can throw on their t-shirt, snap a picture, share on social media, and it makes, apparel fundraising super easy. While you guys, I think Christina might have mentioned, generally you can expect around $10 to $15 per item sold. But again, there's a couple variables that go into that. But I'm happy to share more about that with any of you that have questions. Just shoot me an email, reagan@bonfire.com.
Reagan, if you're doing a time-based campaign, what's a good guideline on how long to make those? I mean, if you make it too long, people don't have that sense of urgency. If you make it too short, you can't quite get the word out sometimes.
Totally. Yeah. So on Bonfire, you can run campaigns for 2 to 21 days. Definitely about 14 days is our sweet spot and what David and I definitely recommend. Like you mentioned, that gives people ample time to be able to purchase and for you to, get the word out and let people know that you have this awesome campaign that's happening, but also isn't too long of a turnaround because as a reminder, we do not print and ship everything until the end of that 14 days. So yeah, that's kind of a good in-between between the 2 and 21. 14 is kind of a sweet spot there.
Okay, that's good to know. Let's see. Any other questions about peer-to-peer in general? I see Ken has another question about the shirt cost. It does depend on whether you're doing like tank tops or hoodies or whatever else, right?
It does, yes. And so you can see all of that when you are setting up a Bonfire campaign. Before you even launch your campaign, it's what we call our base cost. And that's basically the cost that Bonfire is keeping to produce the item. So that's correct. A t-shirt, I've got my Bonfire t-shirt on. A t-shirt versus a hooded sweatshirt, those base costs look a little bit different. Everything above the base cost is your take home and goes right back to your mission. You guys actually have the ability to set your retail prices, so the profits are really in your hands. But yeah, like I said, $10 to $15 is kind of a good general ballpark. Those base costs also vary a bit depending on what your design looks like, how many colors are in it, if it's on the front and the back, stuff like that.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I don't see a lot of other questions coming in. I do want to remind everybody that we will be sending this slide deck tomorrow in case you missed any of those links, as well as the replay recording and a link to our board engagement survey. So do you have any closing remarks before we wrap up?
No, I think that just thank you again for hosting. And yeah, like Reagan mentioned, I think if you want to get in touch with us specifically, you can have a channel directly to her, but ultimately, hopefully we provided you guys with some fun and simple ideas heading into the new year. But happy holidays, everyone. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I'll see you next month at our next webinar.
Thanks so much, guys. Get into some peer-to-peer fundraising. It's super fun and it works.